It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. Great to have you in studio today. We're going to be talking about the Slide Fire burn area. The burned area emergency response team has been in there for the last couple of months doing some work and trying to rehab the place and make it safer for the residents that live through the canyon and the water supplies. And I was looking at it today. Let me welcome our guests. We have Sean Martin. You're the Slide BAER implementation lead, and Catherine Sanchez-Meter is the public information officer. Welcome to studio, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
We were going to try to talk about BAER Fire as you guys were getting set up and doing the work up there, and that just didn't quite work out. But now you've been up there, and the notice I saw on the website today was that the work has been completed or mostly completed. Up in the Slide Fire burn area?
almost completely done. I think there may be one toilet that has not been pumped yet, but other than that, everything that was identified and that we received funding to do has been done.
What is a BAER team? Let's start with that. What is a BAER team and who's it made up of?
The BAER team is Burned Area Emergency Response, and so it's made up primarily of it's got a wildlife biologist, soil and water person, a hydrologist, really heavy on the soil, water, and hydrology, not so much on the forestry end of things like it tended to be in the past.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and it's primarily made up of local folks. We did bring in a very experienced team leader from, I believe, Washington State, and he had been involved in many different large fires, and so other than that, everybody else was local. And so there's two parts to it. There's an assessment team that starts right about the time that the fire is being contained. So before it is completely contained, we've got the team coming in, and they're looking at maps and resources at risk, and they're identifying potential problem areas where, infrastructure could be damaged, or resources or what have you. So they go through and they do the assessment, and they write up the large BAER report that you've seen that was released to the public. And from that, there's an implementation team that can be made up of the same folks, and usually is. It includes those, but then we've added other folks too to help in that effort. So essentially, yeah, like a two-pronged attack. And so some of the things that we did were seeding and mulching, aerial seeding and mulching. That was 2,175 acres, and that was done in about 3 weeks. The seeding was done in just a few days.
So who determines this area was burnt the most? Because how much did the fire burn? Over 20,000 acres, right?
Yeah, it was approximately 22,000 acres in total.
So now we're only 2,170 acres. So what kind of determines that area that needs to be seeded and mulched?
So they go, as part of that assessment, the soil scientists and the hydrologists come through, and they do some tests where they pour some water on the soil, and then they'll dig a little deeper and they keep pouring water. And so what they identify and they map where the soil becomes water repellent, or it's hydrophobic is the technical term for it. And so they'll determine where the high severity areas are, the moderate severity, and the low severity. And this is all done with a satellite map, where they'll do a burned area reflectance composite map is what it's called.
Wow.
And so we kind of know where the highest burned areas are before we even go out there.
Okay.
You get out there and you can say, well, these sticks are really black and there's no needles left. That's probably high severity.
I would say, yeah.
So we start there, and where we actually do the seeding and mulching, we don't do it on slopes over 40%, because that's kind of defeating the purpose a little bit, because it's too steep, and the seed and the mulch will run off, and it'll all end up down in a canyon somewhere.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so what we do, we only do the high severity areas that are less than 40%, and a lot of times the BAER folks, they don't like to do moderate severity, but on this fire they found that moderate severity burns were also very water repellent too. So we did a large portion of the moderate severity.
Paint a picture of me of what moderate severity would be.
Moderate severity would be kind of more of a mosaic, where you might have a mixture of completely blackened dead trees with no foliage left. All the needles are burnt off, but over on another acre very close by, you might have some green, or you might have dead trees that still have brown burnt needles left.
Okay.
So, and it's kind of, the moderate severity is kind of nice in a way, because As the needles fall, it provides its own natural mulch too. So it's
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a little bit better than the burns, the high burn severity. Actually, much better than the high burn severity.
Let me ask you this. Now, when I drove through Oak Creek Canyon, and I was looking, we talked about this a few weeks back with Vic Morphin from Coconino National Forest, and I noticed that right where the fire started there at
Slide Rock.
Yeah, Slide Rock, that there was you could definitely tell that there was a fire there. It was very burnt and very moonscaped. Would that be the high intensity burn area?
Yes,
Something like
for sure.
that? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that piece right there above Slide Rock.
Anybody that drives through the canyon now can look at that and say, okay, that's high severity.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and as you're driving through the canyon, you're pretty much under the canopy of the river vegetation, which is a lot.
We talked about that. A little misleading.
Yeah. It's it's a lot moister down there. You've got the creek going through. The humidity's a little higher, and so when the fire came down into the creek, it didn't really burn as hot as it did on the slopes above. But as you're driving up or down the canyon, you can look off to the west there, and you can see slopes where it did burn moderate to high severity. But as you're driving through, you have this impression that the fire really didn't come through there very much.
Right.
But it really did, and most of that is up above.
The canyon. We talked about that too. Is that it went up and then onto the top of the rim, and is that where most of the work was done?
That's where most of the work was done. Yeah, we did do about 150 acres. One right there by Slide Rock was a 70, 80 acre little patch. We did another one up by West Fork of Oak Creek, where it comes into Oak Creek.
I heard that wasn't too good back in there.
It was about 78. Yeah, it burned pretty hot in West Fork too. It was pretty mosaic-y, you know. I mean, none of the fire area was really what you'd call a moonscape. You know, I hate to use that term, but you know, it was a really nice mosaic, and more than half of the fire, more than 50% of the fire was actually low severity or unburned. So that was a really good thing. It was almost like a managed fire, you know, especially where the crews did some burnout operations, and it really did what we wanted it to do. You know, it's fighting fire with fire, and as the wildfire comes up, it'll hit areas where we have burned, and it'll just kind of stay down on the ground, or it'll have nothing to burn. And it actually burned into a timber sale area that we had off the 535 road, the teacup timber sale.
The 535 was pretty key in the whole thing, wasn't it?
It was.
And Pump House Wash was pretty key too, to keep it out of there.
Yeah, we were very fortunate it didn't get into Pump House Wash.
So what do we plant up there? What is it that, I mean, because really when these wildfires happen, we saw it with the Schultz fire, where just right after the fire, boom, we've got monsoon, and now we've got the Slide fire, boom. I think the Brins fire too in Sedona was the same way. You get these fires, and then monsoon kicks in. So we have to obviously have something that's going to sprout quick and go, because that's what we want. We're trying to hold the soil back, right?
Right. Yeah, and it's a race against the clock when you have a fire in June. You know, the monsoons are typically here around early July, so we came up with a seed mixture of all grasses. So, you know, something that could germinate quickly and get established in the soil really fast. So what we used was a combination of it was a non-native barley, which germinates quickly and sprouts readily and just gets in and establishes itself really quickly. We also used 3 native grasses, slender wheatgrass, little blue stem, and squirreltail, bottlebrush squirreltail. So the barley did what it was supposed to do. It sprouted really good, a carpet of green in most areas within 2 weeks. So that's doing really well, and it's sterile barley, so it'll produce seed for a couple years, but eventually it's going to get outcompeted by the native vegetation and come back in. But it's great.
Well, that's interesting. So it's a fast sprouter, which works in the meantime, but then eventually the native stuff will just run right over the top of it and take it back over.
It will, yeah.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Oh, that's
we're very
smart.
strategic with those seed mixes that we put in. So the mix of the squirreltail, slender wheat, and then the blue stem,
little blue stem. Yes.
They like soils that are a little more sandy, so that helped in the areas that we seeded down in the canyon. So with the different types of soils, you're going to want to pull in different types of native grasses.
Right.
We'll take a break already.
Okay.
All right, we have to take a break. Let's do that. Let me get your names out here. Sean Martin, the Slide BAER Implementation Lead. Catherine Sanchez-Meter, Public Information Officer, both the Coconino National Forest. I'm Paul David. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
So, I just moved in with his family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that! That's disgusting! Oh, poop already! You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
Time to wake up. I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
Don't forget, you've got a job to do today.
Hey, Mom. I got the job. Thanks.
Got the job. Welcome aboard.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does. And like that, you're a job creator. Get out to the forest.
Let the kids connect to their roots. It's gonna be so much fun. Yeah! Woo-hoo!
Hey, guys, wait up!
And discover the wonders of nature with your family.
These trees are the key to our way of life.
Fresh air.
What a glorious morning!
Clean water.
Woohoo! This is great!
And endless forest adventure.
Let's rock this jungle!
Yo, this is untapped territory.
How amazing!
Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
Welcome back to Countywide. Sean Martin, Slide Bear Implementation Lead, and Catherine Sanchez Meter, Public Information Officer in studio today. Catherine is actually with the Kaibab National Forest, and she's helping the Coconino National Forest right now with this particular project. Okay, so we've talked about, we accomplished the mulching and the seeding up there. How is it looking up there? We did mention, Sean, that some of the grasses have started to pop up, but is it looking good? And have we had a lot of damage in the canyon because of the slide fire burn and then the monsoon hitting it?
Well, we're right with the information about the grass coming up. Things are looking good, and you also have your New Mexico locust and your mesquite and your oak sprouting up. So some of those, and bracken ferns are also coming in. So that vegetation is 3 feet high right now. And so in terms of...
No kidding.
Yeah, when you're up on top,
Okay.
you can walk through it, and the bracken fern are this high. It's really cool. They actually like disturbance, and so they respond really well to many types of disturbance. Sorry, and fire is one of those. So when you think about the flooding that we have had in the canyon, luckily, knock on wood, has not been significant. We haven't had one of those big cells line up over the slide fire burn area, and so there has been a little bit of flooding on some of the private land and Pine Flat area, and then we've seen, taken photographs of black muck, a lot of ash in the water, and it's just really turbid and not very appealing looking. So we just haven't had those events yet. But we really need to make sure that people remember that the area in Oak Creek Canyon, the forest system lands, are closed to the public for health and safety. And I know folks have been really good and really patient. We're in the closure now, going into week 6. And I call it closure fatigue. It's like, it's still closed, folks. We still are in the monsoon season, so it's very important to be mindful of that.
Yeah, because I mean, it could happen.
It's still vulnerable.
Right.
We've been very lucky. There's been some pretty significant rain events up in Flagstaff, for example, that if they were 5-10 miles to the southwest and right over the fire, it could have been very damaging.
I think we're talking about how the slide fire burn actually kind of dodged a bullet this year, which is really a blessing with all the homes and stuff down there, and the water supplies, because there are water supplies right down. There was something else that I noticed in the report, that certain rain gauges were set up throughout the burn area. Maybe we should talk about those a little bit, because that's the initial warning right there, isn't it not?
Right. It really is. So those are alert weather stations that are put in, and they're permanent, so they'll stay in place now on the Forest Service, on the Coconino National Forest, and so we can watch those and monitor those, and they give real-time data with the amount of rainfall in those areas, and so emergency management folks can look at that and say, okay, we've got a cell on this part of the burned area that we've got 1 inch, or we're looking at 1.5 inches, and then they can make a decision if they're going to turn on the sirens, or if they're going to tie in with folks, maybe close 89A for a little bit.
We had a few of those this year.
Yes, we did at the beginning of the monsoon season. And that's when we had some of that mud and debris flow into Pine Flats, but nothing huge, no huge amounts of damage. So we are very lucky, but we're still in that monsoon season, and it still could happen, so we just need folks to remember that.
Yeah. Water supplies are being protected up there too, correct?
Yeah, there was the Sterling Canyon Spring Box, which provides water to the fish hatchery, Pine Flat Campground, and some downstream water users. And that was armored fairly well with concrete, but it was old and they felt it was vulnerable, so they came in and poured an extra layer and made it a little more conducive to having water flow off of it instead of
hydrodynamic.
Hydrodynamic, that's the word I was looking for.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's really, it's kind of in a bad spot when you look at it, because you got Oak Creek coming in and Sterling Canyon coming in right there. It's a real pinch point. It's really narrow, so it's in a very vulnerable spot that you know, it's in much better condition now to withstand any type of flooding damage or debris flow.
The other thing tied to that is there's a standpipe there. If you've driven through Oak Creek Canyon, you know exactly where it is when you get past Pump House, Wash. Yep, it's right there. So that's been turned off. And the reason we turned that off is if we did get a flood event and those pipes were busted, then contamination could flow into the system, and then that would be a huge effort to get that cleaned out. So it's more of a proactive response by turning that standpipe off.
It's going to be a little while longer before we know exactly what the long-term effects of this is going to be on the slide fire burn area. I mean, after monsoon season, Brady Smith said he'd been going the winter the closure area because we just have to be extremely careful.
Well, and the current closure is in effect until the end of the calendar year, so December 31st.
Okay.
And so folks with the Coconino National Forest will evaluate the monsoon season and evaluate conditions down there, how the response has been from the vegetation, from the seeding efforts, to make the determination if they can open some areas or open the entire closure. So they would really take a hard look at it, because nobody's life or anybody getting hurt is not worth us trying to open that before it's time.
Does the BAER team keep in touch, I should say, with the residents throughout the canyon, or is that maybe something Coconino National Forest or law enforcement does, just to kind of see how they're doing? And
we do through news releases and through other agencies. You know, we did send out letters to permit holders and in the canyon area, just talking about, you know, whatever you do may affect your neighbor, and, you know, please don't act rashly. You know, there's been other incidences where, other fires where, because of flooding concerns, one neighbor has done something to protect their home, and it's in turn caused some...
Puts the other one in jeopardy?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So, you know, we try to get that reminder out, and we worked with Natural NRCS, providing them some information on storm runoff and potential that allowed them to provide some additional funding to the county for Jersey barriers and sandbags and things like that.
And the county did a great job managing that piece, working with conservation crews, the NRCS and Forest Service to help the private residents and the businesses down in the canyon. And the other piece is the county did this great job sending out information to all the folks that live in the canyon with information about the burned area and possible flooding. And so there was a great collaboration effort between entities, between agencies, governments.
Well, it's good to know things are on the mend. We'll take the break, okay? Sean Martin, Slide BAER Implementation Lead, and Catherine Sanchez-Meter, Public Information Officer, in studio today. I'm Paul David. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Really? Buzz, what's up, man? You left some leaves burning out here.
Yeah, I just came in just for a second.
Come on, man. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. You could torch the whole neighborhood.
It's a good point there, Smokey.
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Get caught buzz driving, and you could do some hard time.
Crap. Knock it off.
Sorry, Mom.
It could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. And that could set you back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
We finally bought a place.
You seriously have enough saved to do that?
We've been putting a little aside each month.
At the end of the month, we have nothing left to save. How is my account overdrawn?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
Good one, son.
Last summer, my new dad took me on vacation. First, we went deep sea fishing.
Wow! I'm so proud of you, son.
And then we went on Thunder Shark. That was awesome! Let's go again. 3 times. I gotta say, it was pretty cool.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
Oh, not again.
Welcome back to Countywide. We have just a couple minutes left of the program. If you remember back when the slide fire was happening, it was just about contained. We found out that there were remnants of an old cabin up there, and we kind of talked with Brady Smith from Coconino National Forest about that. But then you two come in here and tell me that it's not just that was found. There's more stuff that was found up there. Interesting, unique historical things.
Yeah, in addition to the Ranger Thomas cabin, not too far away in the canyon near West Fork was the Lolamai Lodge, which is a lodge that was established sometime after the turn of the century. It was a place for fishing and just a nice retreat down in the canyon. Anyway, it fell into disrepair and kind of got overgrown, and it was torn down. And after the fire came through, it burned the vegetation, and lo and behold, there's rock foundations and rock walls and some terracing right up above the creek, and it turned out this was the Lolamai Lodge. So our archaeologists knew that it had existed there, but they never knew exactly the point where it was, and so the fire actually revealed that.
So what's being done now with when you find something like that? Obviously, we go in and study it and look for, you know, antiques and all kinds of interesting historical items, right?
Right.
They'll record data about the particular site, and they'll look and see what kind of mitigation measures they can do to preserve it. And in this case, it was really interesting because we found asbestos, which is a hazardous material, and so we had some additional funds outside of BAER funds to come in and help survey the area and figure out what we needed to do for a hazardous cleanup. And we had crews come in with the full hazmat suits to collect all of the asbestos shingles. And then they put in wattles and other fence to then help keep any debris out of Oak Creek. So it was this great find, and we removed a hazardous material. But it's kind of a neat spin on something that, with wildfire, you know, it burned an area, but then we had this very cool discovery.
Yeah, like a treasure there.
Yeah.
So when was the Lolamai Lodge back? When was it in the canyon? What was its heyday? Do we know?
Teens, 20s, 30s.
Yeah.
So it was a tourist destination up there.
For sure.
I imagine at the same time Slide Rock, the little cabins that they had built there at the same time. So the whole area.
Yeah,
it was interesting because BAER funds paid for the testing to determine if it really was contaminated with asbestos, but the BAER funds could not be used for the cleanup. So we had to work with our regional office and find additional funds to help clean that up. And it was located in a real precarious spot, right on the terrace with a drainage coming right through it. And so one big storm event could have washed a lot of this right down into the creek, but we were able to avoid that and get it cleaned up and mitigated.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yes, Catherine, very good to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming down. Sean, great to meet
us.
you. That's today's Countywide. We will talk to you again next time.